Farmers are still suffering. You guys have seen plenty of farmers videos. But now what these MAGA Republicans are finally having to start to admit is that they're in trouble and we need to come with some kind of solution to it. Joni Ernst is one of the first ones.
As a member of the Agriculture Committee from Iowa, I just want to get your reaction to President Trump considering $10 billion in aid to assist American farmers due to these tariff tensions. Obviously, a lot of farmers in your state. What do you make of this?
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, our farmers do need that assistance. They don't like it. They do consider it welfare. They want trade, not aid. And so we really need to see some of these new markets opening up around the globe. We need to see additional domestic consumption of our commodities like soybeans and corn. China is just not budging on this. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of soybean contracts due to these elongated negotiations. But if there's anybody that can make a deal, it's President Trump. So we'll continue to hope for the best and we'll help our farmers where and how we can.
Hey, Joni Ernst, how does that work? Donald Trump's tariff policies, she just admitted, are destroying farmers' lives. Now he's floating a $10 billion bailout for them because, he's destroying their lives. Based off of this economic policy, she even admitted that China is stonewalling this whole trade war that he started. Proudly, loudly announced that he's starting this trade war. So she squarely put the responsibility on Donald Trump, but then flipped back and said, the only person that can solve this is Donald Trump with his deal making. His deal making got you in this situation in the first place. So somehow is also deal making is going to get you out of it when you have no idea what you're going to do about it, except take $10 billion more of regular Americans' money and give it to farmers and act like that's some kind of economic policy. What kind of economic policy is consistent bailouts for a destruction of the economy and these soybean farmers' livelihoods makes any sense? This is how dire the situation is. Here's one of those soybean farmers. I was going to find one of them.
Our entire cost structure has gone here, but our revenue has done this. So this is where we find ourselves for the last 2-3 years, kind of, and it's quite challenging. I mean, it's a bloodbath, or becoming one.
And on top of all of that, these farmers are dealing with extremely high input costs. So the message comes at an important time. On top of that, last week, President Trump said he'd like to give the revenue from tariffs to farmers. We have not seen a concrete plan for that yet, but farmers like Chris Gould are waiting to find out more.
Why is she standing in the middle of a field? I don't know. I guess it makes for a more on-the-scene reporter. Anyways, Fox Business even had to admit, talking to a soybean farmer, it's a bloodbath, bro. It's a bloodbath. So, of course, $50 billion, 10, I don't remember how many billions of dollars they're saying they're bailing these folks out with. It's squarely on their shoulders. And again, depending on which news source you're watching, I guess over on CNBC, Scott Bessent thinks that he can continue this lie anyway. I want you to try and guess who Scott Bessent is blaming this on.
And Joe, to go back on the ag purchases and President Trump's phase 1 trade deal that was signed in January 2020, there were over $50 billion of ag purchases. The Chinese followed through during President Trump's term in 2020. And then under President Biden, their feet were not held to the fire for these ag purchases. And at the meeting in Geneva, when I asked them, why didn't you continue buying soybeans and the other products, they had one word. Guess what it was? Biden.
Biden. Oh, that sounds like malarkey. Come on, man.
Even this guy over on CNBC had to say that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Scott Bessent, he talked to the folks about these ag purchases and said it was Biden. They had one word. All they said was Biden, because that's how people talk to him. I'm surprised he didn't say, they said, sir, it was Biden. God, they're not even good at lying. They don't care that they're bad at lying. They don't care that everyone knows that they're frauds, but it's somehow Biden's fault for not forcing them with these ag purchases. Not the fault of the guy who said, I'm starting a trade war and I don't need China. He said, we don't need China. They need us more than we need them. But somehow those same folks said, Biden. What a liar. I'm glad he called malarkey. How about you call him a fucking liar? Let's go with normal words like that. So, in case you guys, plenty of people are saying it, and I understand it. How about all these farmers that voted for Donald Trump now crying and whining? It affects us all, but that's not the only thing that he's screwing up with his economic policies. He's also screwing up the job market, screwing up wages, and screwing up inflation. Maria Bartiromo had to admit it too.
We did just get the ADP jobs data, and the number is down 32,000 jobs in the month of September versus an expectation of a gain of 50,000 jobs for the month of September. So worse than expected. Markets were down going into the number and remained lower.
Things aren't looking very good. I honestly, I've played a lot of Maria Bartiromo whenever she gives the bad news of what's going on, because she's always been the one that's been kissing ass and trying to somehow excuse all of these policies. They also had Lori Chavez DeRemer on. She's also an official in the Trump administration, and she has to answer some questions about why these things look this bad, why the job report continues to be horrible over and over. Let's not forget, that's not just September's job report. We're talking about like most of this year. Every month, it's horrible. That's why they fired the commissioner of Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's why they're now delaying the next report coming out.
So the jobs number is not out today for September, but will you release the September jobs number after the government reopens?
Well, certainly what we want to see at BLS is to have those numbers out. Why? The markets depend on it. Businesses depend on it. You know that, Maria. Every decision is made on a lot of these accurate numbers. The president has been clear over the last few months that the commissioner under the Biden administration was, out of that job, and we're hoping that new nominee comes in as soon as the White House determines who that is, so we can get those accurate numbers out to the American people. Everything that we do under the Department of Labor, as well as the economy, counts on accurate data points and modernization of those numbers. So we're going to be working hard, looking forward for that, to release those numbers. Listen, we saw the ADP numbers come out. They weren't the best. But we see the momentum because all indicators of this economy is that it is going to keep growing. And under this president and this leadership and under the Department of Labor, we're going to continue to move full force ahead so we can grow this economy.
Based on what? When is somebody going to ask that next question? She said these job numbers weren't the best. In fact, they suck. That's actually the accurate statement. But we see the momentum. If you don't know anything about this, if you believe everything that they say, I feel like the next natural question, if as you're seeing reality in front of you and you're like, man, these things suck. Look at these job numbers the past several months. Look at the inflation reports. Look at the destruction of our economy. Look at these tariff deals that don't exist. Where's all this money? Where's the golden age? I feel like the next question you would ask someone who says it's we see the momentum, you'd be like, oh, that's inspiring. Where do you see the momentum? It's not even a gotcha question. They should be able to answer where the momentum is if they're feeling, jazzed about momentum. This same woman lied some more.
But certainly in this administration and as a former member of Congress, for them to not see that they are hurting the American people. We've been on a momentum of job gains. We've been working so hard across the country to make sure that we are growing this economy and, really having the workforce investments that we've been doing to only see it come to a screeching halt. While we're not going to get the jobs numbers report because they will not open this government, we want to keep the momentum going. I mean, that's been the goal as I've traversed this country. We're seeing consumer confidence up. We're seeing businesses want to reinvest in their workforce. And this is only, a real screeching halt for the American people. And it's unfortunate that the Democrats don't see that they're fighting for the American people and they're going to pay.
Well, I mean, the data, though. You know where we are. I mean, we've had 3 months of slowing jobs. We know we don't have the numbers for September, but is there anything you could tell us about the jobs picture today?
Yeah, what we're seeing is the investments. I was just in Michigan at Ford, and I met with Bill Ford. I met, with other investors, CEOs who are putting the workforce together. We have to upskill and reskill. We heard more than once that we're short of our welders, our construction workers. It's important that we have those tradesmen and women building this country. That's what the president laid the groundwork with a lot of these trade deals. And to see the investments that these companies are making, trillions of dollars, now be stopped. That's the unfortunate part. But we've seen the confidence grow grow for the American economy. Look at GDP, 3.8%. So all of the indicators that you've seen from your economists on the show have shown that we're moving in the right direction. So while we've seen the numbers kind of hold steady, the goal is to not stop the momentum, and that's what we're hoping for the American people.
Well, honestly, I don't think normal thinking Americans are buying it. I really don't. We're seeing it, and then every result that is destructive of people's lives, which the next one will be all these folks with their rising healthcare premiums, which is the one thing the Democrats are holding out for. I mean, unless they fold from these empty threats that these guys keep making. But that's the one thing that you'll then see next. They can't blame them for all these. It's a constant threat. Where are these investments that she was just talking about? At least she maybe started answering that question about this momentum, except it's a lie. Where are these investments? Why are businesses not able to hire these laborers, these welders, and all these hardcore blue collar workers if the investments are all over the place? If people are investing and have tons of money in the economy and are building new factories and all this stuff, where is it? Where is it? How is it people are losing jobs when people are apparently getting hired? It doesn't make any sense.